start recording, and then so right here, this is the service that I'm going to take you through the steps of how to upload your own website. And this will be part of the final project. So for your final project, I want everybody to actually upload their final project, and we will be able to actually view the final project on the web. Like, you won't have to send me HTML like you normally do, where you copy the text and you send it in email. You'll be able to have a website that's live. So Alta Vista is one of them that's out there, which is nice. It doesn't have like any ads. It will give you a full website. The only thing that it adds to whatever you create is the name of your site will just have .altavista.org on the end. So let's say you want to create a site for like a cupcake business. You know, your cupcake business would be, you know, Felicia's cupcake .altavista.org. It won't just be Felicia's cupcake.org. Now, ideally, from a business standpoint, you know, you want that URL to just be the name of your business. You don't want to add another business name to the end of it. So that's the only caveat with using Alta Vista, is that it will add Alta Vista name up here to the end of your URL. But it's free, and you can learn how to actually upload your own content to the web using Alta Vista, which is really, really nice. So that's something we'll go over. I'll probably go over that next week, you know, as we get towards the end of the class, and then we'll probably start to think about our final assignment. So there you go. So does that answer your question? Oh, hey, Hanaya.
I have a question though. What's the difference between a web hosting service and a domain service? Because I have a domain, I have my domain name. Now,
okay.
What's the difference between that?
So there's two things you have to do when you create your website. You have to register your domain name, and then you have to find a hosting service. So those two things are different. So it's just part of the process. Registering a domain is ensuring that that domain name is available to you. So you can go out and register a domain name and not necessarily have that site hosted. You know, you have a company and you go out, and this is what some companies do, that they will get all the domain names that sound similar to their domain name. So for example, you know, like your cupcake example. So you would want feliciascupcakes.com, feliciascupcakes.org. You would go through all the suffixes, you know, for those names, the .net. And then maybe you would think about, if somebody's going to type in that URL, what would be some variations that they might mistakenly type in. So maybe you want to have Felicia's Cupcake, or you know, Felicia Cupcake, or what, you know, you try to get those variations, because you can reroute domain names. If you have other names out there, you can point them back to the main site. So registering a domain name is part of that process. Now, when you use Alta Vista, and a lot of sites do this now, like GoDaddy, for example, when you sign up for GoDaddy as your host, or Alta Vista as your host, they include the domain name service as part of that process. So they may charge you a little bit extra for you to register your domain name with them. So yeah, that is a very distinct aspect of it. So you would have to do both.
Does Google offer a domain, a web hosting service?
I don't know if Google does. They might. So yeah, they do.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, Google, so yeah, and I've never thought about using Google. You know, so I'm sure like Google and Microsoft, you know, and any of these big uh, internet-based technology companies offer something. The company that is probably the industry leader in terms of offering hosting and all sorts of other services is Amazon. So
Okay.
from a business standpoint, depending on what your focus is, Amazon Web Services is usually a very good place to go for a host. And now with Amazon Web Services, you can sign up for free, and I believe you can actually start hosting through them for free. So they base their rate that they charge you on the amount of traffic you come in. And even if it's not for free, you know, if you have a website that's, you know, not getting any traction and nobody's visiting the site, maybe just practicing, you know, they might charge you like $1 a month or something, you know, not a lot, but you got to keep track of it, because if all of a sudden you get 100 people coming to your site, then before you know it, you might see a bill for $100, and you might be like, wow, you know, so the bill fluctuates. Amazon Web Services is a little different because they do offer, it's like they offer like 120 different types of services through AWS, and the process to upload your site is different as well. So it's not the same process that you would do with Alta Vista. So with Alta Vista, what we're going to do is upload using an FTP service or file transfer protocol. And I'll go through this with you, and it's pretty simple. You know, an FTP service is basically a way for you to send information to somebody else, to another server. So you would get their FTP information, and you would plug that into whatever FTP tool that you're using to upload your website. And for this class, I just use the FTP tool in Dreamweaver. So there's other tools out there, but I just use Dreamweaver's default tool. So when we do this, I'll actually open up Dreamweaver, and you'll get to see Dreamweaver a little bit and how it works in Dreamweaver. So there's an FTP tool that lets you upload straight into Dreamweaver. So yeah, so that's a long answer, right, to your question. But yeah, there's ways to do that, and it's pretty easy to upload your site. But Amazon Web Services, let me just go there actually, so you can kind of see it, because Amazon Web Services is like, they got so much that they offer. It's pretty crazy. Let me see if I can actually log on to mine. But it's easy to create an account, but there's a lot to learn once you create it. Let me see. Well, I'm not going to log in, but anyways, if you go into the like solutions, you see all the different things that they offer. You know, it's integrated with the Internet of Things. There's computer vision solutions, natural language processing. You think about Alexa, how Alexa works. So you can create Alexa apps and upload them to AWS. There's all these different services for AWS. So it's pretty in-depth. And if you're ever curious about it, if you want to get AWS certified, those jobs are in high demand. So if you ever want to learn more about AWS, and if I'll just do a quick search for an AWS engineer salary, you can start to see 130,000 a year, 42, 47, $100,000 a year. So average salary for somebody who knows AWS is 6 digits. So just knowing this, it's a good thing. And if you ever want to get certified, I have an O'Reilly account, but if you sign up for O'Reilly, which it's like $40 a month, but I'm sure if you wanted to go through this process, there's all these certifications, and you can go and take all the certification tests, get AWS certified, and then, I mean, that would be such a good thing as a backup, let's say, you know, especially now, you know, when people aren't working, and especially when Amazon is like having profits through the roof, right? You realize like Amazon is like making so much money right now, right? So, I mean, as just to gain the knowledge, this AWS certification is something that would be, you know, just as a backup, you know, let's say you're doing your artwork and you're like, you know what, I still need to make some money. Why don't I just get certified? So this is through O'Reilly, and I myself am actually going through and taking some of these AWS classes just to get more familiar with it. So it's a good thing. So anyways, one of the things I want to talk about first is Adobe Xd. So how many of you are using Adobe Xd right now? Is anybody here using it? Are you guys familiar with it? Here at PCC, there's a little boy sneaking into the room right now. Here at PCC, there is a user experience class. So the user experience class is more focused on just design and layout, and a lot of that class is focused on responsive design as well, and just prototyping a website. You know, just the wireframe, just the structure of the website. They don't really get into any of the code that you're getting into in this class. But with the Creative Cloud, Adobe Xd is a program that's available to you if you have that Creative Cloud. Let me just open it up here. So right here, Xd, and I'll open it up, and I'll show you what it looks like when you open it up at first. So this is a great tool, and I'm gonna actually recommend that you guys use this on your final project. Now, you could have used this earlier, but I haven't really talked about it. And in fact, for myself, I started using it more like almost like last week. And I went ahead and I just started building like all these sites like for my day job. So I got a couple examples in here. So building out an app. And the way it works is you basically create your whole sitemap, and then you can link things together so you can actually see the flow of the site. So let's say if this was for your gallery assignment, you could set it up so there's a little play button here, and when I click that play button, I can click on these buttons and it takes me to the different pages on the website, and I just get a good feel for how that website works. And what's actually cool about this is after you create something here, you can actually export it. I can go to export, I click on batch, and I can export it to the web. And if I export it to the web, and I actually, let's see if I have to click on anything here. I don't think I have to. If I export it to the web, and let's see, it should give me, oh wait, if I, that's actually sending this to the Creative Cloud, but if I go to share and say create link, so give it a couple seconds, it's going to create a public link. And then if I click here, it's going to open up. And here it is right here.
Of course, is our patients, but I am worried, particularly in the hotspots, about the physicians. They are emotionally exhausted.
There's
they
like
are physically exhausted, and that's why hospitals
I don't know where
and
that's coming from.
all institutions have to make sure that the safety and wellness.
Let me do this. So let me do this again. I'm going to click here. It's going to open up. And then what's nice about it is you can send somebody this link. You just copy and paste this. In fact, I'll throw it into Discord. And then you guys can look at it. I can throw it into the chat as well. But now you can look at this, and you can actually put comments here, like needs better artwork or something. And then that comment submitted, and then you can collaborate with somebody and make the changes. But here it's fully functioning. So it works like a real website. But this is just the preliminary stage. You would still have to create the HTML for this. So it does let you work with a client and get an approval on a project. So let me show you. Do you want me to show you how this works real quick so you understand it? This is super easy in terms of developing. So let me do this. And let me just run this through you and give you an understanding of the process. So let's say you're working on your final project. It's going to come around to your time to do the final project. So for your idea, for your concept, you go into Adobe Xd, just click New, and you can pick like a standard size here. So let's pick this web 1920 by 1080. So this is the size we're going to work at. And what's interesting about Adobe Xd is that it's very minimalistic in terms of the number of menus that you have available to you. So they're not giving you every single tool in the world. It's not like Dreamweaver, which has 20 different windows and 10 different toolbars and hundreds of icons. Adobe Xd is really scaled down for simplicity. So it's all about just making that page. So what you have here is your artboard, and then to your left, to your very left are your tools. So your tools are very simple. So they're only giving you like 9 tools at the most. So they're giving you a standard selection tool, make a square, make a circle, make a triangle, a line tool, a pen tool, your type tool. This is a tool to make more artboards, but I don't even use that. And then your zoom tool, but I use Control ± or Command ±. So this is your artboard, and the name of the actual template is up here. So it was web 1920. Doesn't give you the full name, but it was 1920 by 1080. And over here where it says all items, this is like your layers. So it's a combination of your layers and pages. It acts like layers and pages at the same time. And then to your right is just basically your properties for your tools. And if you look, you only have 3 menu items. So it's not like Photoshop where you have 10 menu items. So it's super simple, and that's all you get here. So when you're developing, you can go ahead and you can just start to lay things out. So usually I go with my rectangle tool, and I will start to just lay out the basic wireframe. And so now I have a rectangle created here. If I go down here, I can start to play with my fill for that. So just giving it a color. Border, I don't want one, so I'm going to turn it off. And then here I will work on my menu. So I'll add some buttons for my navigation. So same thing with the rectangle tool. So adding a button for navigation, give it a fill. And I'm going to zoom in, so you can do Command plus or Control plus, and then I'll add text inside this button. So text tool, I just drag it out. And what's cool about Adobe XD is that it has this smart guide feature. So it helps you align things really easily. So I'm gonna add some text in the middle, and you know, I'll call this, let's say this is for like a cooking site. So I'm gonna call this recipes. And I'm using Shift Control period to make this bigger, but you can control the size of your type over here. So you can make your text bigger. Here under text, I can change my font, so I'll make it bold. I'll center it. So there I have my first navigation item here, my first button that goes somewhere else. And I will also make the color of the type black. So you don't even have to highlight the type. You just click on it with the selection tool, and if I go to fill, I can just make it black. So it's super easy like that. And then what you can do is you can grab this, grab both items, and you hit Alt and Shift, and then you can start to drag these out. And then as I drag it out, the pink in between is just telling me that it's equally spaced. And then I'll drag this up here, and those are all equally spaced. And then I'll push this out a little bit. And then maybe I'll change these too. So maybe there's videos, and then maybe there's an FAQ, and maybe there is a contact page down here. And then I would go into this part, and I would start to think about my layout. So one of the things that XD gives you, it gives you the columns that you would kind of see with a tool like Bootstrap. So if I right-click on this, I can go to Show Layout Grid and see these columns here. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So it's using the same column structure that you would use in Bootstrap, which is nice. And then when I start to add more information to this page, maybe I have a banner going across here. I'll use my text tool actually. And something, I don't know what I'm, you know, just kind of making stuff up here. So, but I'm just kind of laying out what this site's going to be. And then maybe I have, let's say, an image down here. So the way that images work is you can basically just cut and paste images into this. So I will find image. I'm just doing like a quick image search. Here. So I'm just doing it's in another window, you can't see it, but I just found an image of a pie, and I'm cutting and I'm pasting it in here. So I got a pie image, but now that I have these guides that kind of show you the actual columns that you use for something like Bootstrap, if I make this bigger or smaller, it just automatically snaps. So it snaps in really nicely. So maybe push this here. You can give it a little rounded corner too by clicking the circles. It's a nice effect. And then maybe I have more information, you know, so the structure too. So maybe these buttons should maybe follow the grid a little bit better. So I'll fix these. I will go here and just kind of fix the size. So maybe instead of the size they're at, I'm just kind of equally spacing them out a little bit. So any questions about this so far? So do you guys see how easy this is to use? Give me your thoughts on this. If you could, because I mean, yeah, go ahead.
It's a good tool to use as to make like a wireframe instead of like Photoshop.
What was I using before to make wireframes?
No, I'm saying like this seems like a really good tool to use to make like wireframes.
Yeah, like to me, this is so much easier than Photoshop because you don't have all the extra unnecessary tools getting in the way, and you only have the tools that are necessary to create something like this. And it's very straightforward. So I'm not even pulling down menu items, right? I'm just kind of making this. So here I probably have like the logo, let's say, for this. So I'm just going to add some text in here, a logo, make it white. Yeah, I've been using this at work, and it's been really helpful just to get stuff done. So I've been just kind of like during this time that I'm working from home, I've been creating all these sites, and like people are like really impressed because they don't realize I'm using this. So it's like, wow, you're doing a lot of work. Well, it's like, look, I just made this in a short amount of time. But let me show you this though. Once you have that basic layout, what you can do is you can grab your artboard and you click up here, and then you Alt-Shift or Option-Shift if you're on a Mac, and just drag these out. And then this is your site layout. So I got, let's say this is my recipe page. This is my videos, cooking videos. This is my FAQ. And this is my contact page. And then I would go through here and probably rename these as well. And let's see. And then what you see here is like basically in this side here, it's just basically every single thing that's in this whole site. So I can go through and I can click on this here. You know, I would change this to recipes. I would change this to videos, and FAQ. You know, so you get the idea, right? So, so the last thing I would do, oops, you go to prototype, and this is where the interactivity comes in. If I click on prototype, and I click on these buttons, there's a little circle with a arrow, and I can just grab this. And so the recipe section goes on the recipe page, the video, and I do the whole box instead of the text. Goes to the video page, FAQ, goes to FAQ page, contact, goes to the contact page. And then I'd have to do it for, if I want it fully interactive, I'd have to do it for each one. Or I think I could drop, copy and paste this as well. And then when you're on a page, usually the logo goes back to your home page. So I can go back here, that. And this is all I did with those other sites that one first site I showed you. It was pretty fast. And that's it. And now when I hit the play, I got my first site. It's going a little, let me do this again. Let me just save it real quick. Okay, then I play. Recipes goes to recipes. The logo goes back. Videos goes to the videos. So you get the general idea, right? So that was a pretty quick way for me to develop a site. Once you have it developed like this is kind of like a very, detailed, sophisticated wireframe. But once you have this developed, then you would start to look at the various sizes of the elements and start to think about how this would translate into your CSS. There's also a plugin here, you have to get it, but there are tools here that will help you. So you go to plugins, and there's a web export that will actually make your code, but I think you have to kind of review it before you think about that. But there's other plugins as well for development purposes. So if you go to Discover, you'll find these plugins, and some of these will help you with some of your CSS as you're developing. So a lot of really cool tools in here to add, and most of them I think are pretty free. I'm using this web export to have this placeholder, generate icons. There's a ton of stuff in here, and I'm still learning it myself. But anyways, I just wanted to show you XD so you have something that you can use now for your final project that you're developing. I think it will really come in handy. So any questions about this? So okay. So yeah, I just wanted to show you that. Now, the other thing I want to talk about today now is animation a little bit more. And I want to talk about it a little bit today and a little bit next week. So last week, what we did was we imported some video, right? We used a couple ways to create the video. So we created video using a web-based type YouTube importer. And then the other way was just taking video with a phone and then uploading it and bringing it into Photoshop. And we did a couple things with the video when we brought it in. One was experimenting with the timeline in Photoshop. And when we experimented with that, we were using the video timeline. So there's two timelines that you can use, and they're kind of combined. So if I go to File, New, and I'm going to create something that, let's say I want to create like some sort of animated GIF. So I'm just going to pick like a square size here. So I'm going into Photoshop, going into New. Make sure it's 72 for your resolution. Make sure set the RGB, and then create. So I have a box here, and I want to create some sort of animated GIF. So with the examples I showed you last time, when we went into the timeline, we used the video version of the timeline. But this time I want to go into frame by frame right away. So I'm going to go into Window and select Timeline. And here's the timeline down below. So when this timeline appears for the very first time, there's nothing there. There's, it's just, there's nothing you can do. There is a button right in the middle. So the button says Create Video Timeline. If you click on the little downward arrow, you get a pop-up menu, and you can also select Create Frame Animation. And then once you select what you want to do, whether it's video or the frame animation option, this is actually a button that you press. So you press it, and now I'm in frame animation mode. So this is the frame by frame mode that you can use. So in this mode, the idea is you have frames, and the frames are associated with layers. If I click on the little box down here, it creates a new frame, but it doesn't necessarily create a new layer. But you can set this up in a way where each layer is essentially a frame. So I'm going to undo, and then up in layers, let's say I wanted to create some sort of a message with text or something. So I'm going to go and use my type tool, and I'm just going to do like maybe there's some sort of sale or something. Here I'm going to pick I'm going to pick this font I like to use called Bungee. And I'm just going to make this text red. And I'm going to scale up this as well. So I'm going to make it big. So I have the word on. In my layers, I'm going to duplicate this layer, the text layer, the type layer. So I'm going to select it. I'm going to drag it to the little box with the plus sign. So now I have a copy. I'm going to drag that out. I'm going to drag it again. Have another copy. And then for the second one, I'm going to double click on it, change the word. I'll change it to sale. And then for the last one, double click on it and change it to now. So if you look down here into my frames, let me see if I can make these frames bigger. Make the frames a little bit bigger so you can see them better. Does everybody see the frames down here, down below?
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys see this?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
So right now, what you're seeing is in my layers, I actually have 4 layers, but all 4 layers are represented in one frame. But what you can do is you can go to your little hamburger menu in the right corner here, and then you can say make frames from layers. And you click on that. It'll basically take each layer and correlate it with a frame. So the background is frame 1, the word on is frame 2, sale is frame 3, and now is frame 4. And then if you look down below here, there's a little time selection. So it says 0 seconds, but I can change that to, instead of 0, let's say 0.2. So that's going to give this a little delay. 0.2, 0.2. And then you have your animation. So this is where you would create that frame by frame animation. You just hit play and there it is. So the key to this is to remember that each frame correlates to the layer that's visible. So that's what you have to remember. So when I click on frame 3, the visibility of sale for the sale layer turns on. Now, if I am on frame 3 and I turn on the visibility of the now layer, which is layer 4, then that becomes part of frame 3 as well. So the only thing that the timeline is doing is it's correlating the frame to the visibility of your layers. That's all it's doing. So yeah, it's a pretty cool kind of thing to have, you know, this ability to do this. I'm going to turn off now. But you know, you could do some other things with this. You know, if you want to have fun with it, you can go ahead and start to duplicate more of these layers and do other things. So I'm going to duplicate sail. You can drag it down to the little box with the plus sign. What's even faster though in Photoshop, and I know we've gone over a little bit of Photoshop, but not a lot, is just remember the shortcut is Control J. So Control J is the way to duplicate a layer, or if you're on a Mac, Command J. So it's a really quick way to do it. So I'm going to do it again. I'm going to hit Control J. So now I duplicated that word sail a bunch of times. And if you notice now, it kind of affects the frames. So you might have to go through these frames now, because duplicating the layer that said sail is kind of adding additional layers, and it's kind of changing the frame order or how the frames correlate with the layer order. So I'm going to have to go back here to sail. I want that to be on. I'm just going to have to change the visibility of the relationship between the visibility of the layers to the frame. So I'm going to go frame 2. I want that to be sail, but I don't want it to say on. Frame 3, this is where I'm going to start to experiment a little bit. Frame 3, I'm going to go to that sail copy, but instead of it being red and in that position, maybe I move it. So I put it over here. And then maybe I change the color as well. So you can go to image, and you can go into, I'm sorry, you go into, I was going to image and go into adjustments. And actually, one of the things I want to do first is I want to right click on this layer with the word sail. I want to right click on it, and I want to convert the text to just a regular image. So right now, really the only way to change the color is for me to actually double click on it, change it up here. So I'm changing the color of the type. I guess I can do it that way. I'll do it this way for now. So I'm just changing the color. So that one's blue. There's another way to do it, but I'll talk about that later. I don't want to overcomplicate this. So frame 2 is the red sail. Frame 3 is the blue sail. And now I want to create another frame, and maybe this frame has the word sail in green. But I need to add another frame. So I'll go down to my timeline, add another frame, click on this third sail copy over here, double click on that, and then make it green. Are you guys following this? Okay. And then it's a bright green. And then I'm going to move it as well. I'm going to move it somewhere else. And then I'm going to go to the final frame, and that should just say now. So I'm just going through each frame and turning off the visibility of the layers that I don't want to be on that frame. So now that I have this, if I hit play on sail, then now kind of the word sail kind of blinks around. And maybe for an interesting effect, I can even make this go faster by taking off the amount of time that disappears down below each frame. And now when I hit play, sail kind of blinks around like that. So that's the idea with using the frame by frame animation in the timeline. And then once you have something that you like, you go to File, and this is important to know. For this animation to be viewable on a website, you need to save it as a GIF. So the GIF or the GIF, however they call it, that file format is really the only way for somebody to see this type of animation in a project. There's other ways to do it that I'll talk about using CSS. But if you're going to create this type of frame by frame animation in Photoshop like this, you need to export it as a GIF file. Now, when you go into File here, go to Export, you have an Export As that will actually let you export a GIF, but this is the wrong one to use, because if I go to Format, and I think I told you this last class, if I go to GIF and I want to export this, it's only going to save it as a single image. So for some reason, when Adobe updated the ability to export the file formats for the web, it didn't include the animation ability in this export. And I don't know why they didn't, but they did keep the old way of doing it. So if you go to Export Legacy, Save for Web Legacy, this is the way it used to work. And if you go here now, if you look for GIF up here, I also have a little play bar down below, and it says forever. And if I hit play, I can see that animation. So now when I save this, I'm just going to save it to my desktop. Call it on sale now. Hit save. And now if I want to see this, what I have to do is I have to go into my browser. So here's my browser window here. And the way you see this is you just open it up. So in my Chrome browser, or it could be Firefox, you could do a Control-O or Command-O to open. Find that GIF, hit open, and there you go. Now the reason why this is black is because the GIF file format will let you have transparency, so that that frame just have to be transparent in the background. But that's the process.
Can you also do this for videos as well?
Well, what I showed you last time was how you would take a video and turn a video into a GIF, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And I can show you that again because it's actually kind of fun. Just like on a side note, everybody's familiar with the site Giffy. Are you guys familiar with Giffy? Who doesn't know what Giffy is?
No.
Say no.
I know.
If you're not, Giffy is this major site. And when you want to send GIFs on your phone, let's say, which is a fun thing to do, you can use Giffy. So if I go to Giffy.com, these are all animated GIFs. And if you notice, you got a lot of video in here as well. But these are all GIFs. You can actually create an account in Giffy, and I have one. Let me see if I remember my login, because I might not. I wonder if I'm already set up here. So here I am on Giffy, and then what you can do is you can upload your GIF animation that you create, and you become part of this, like, you know, kind of like this online community of GIF artists. So a lot of the GIFs that you see here are basically things that people created and then anybody can use. So go here, I go to upload, browse my files, look for on sale now. That's good. And click upload. And now my GIF is here. And then what you can do is you can share it. So I can share it on Instagram. You know, I can go to Twitter, authorize Twitter, and tweet out on sale now. So they even added wings to the thing. So if I go to my Twitter, now some of the social sites turn off this ability to actually show your tweet in action, but here it is. Oh, cool, it's working. So now I have I don't know. People are going to go to my Twitter feed and they're going to see that something's on sale, you know. But it's a fun thing to do. But yeah, about video, so yeah, it's the same thing. Like you find a video clip and you can, what you do is go to File, go to Import Video Frames to Layers.
Okay.
Find your video. So I think we have video that was created here last time. So let's go to Desktop. Let's see what I got here. Probably in Downloads. Oh, you know, it'd be fun. Take a video from our class, turn that into a GIF. So this was from, I don't know if this was our class or not. Maybe this was. So I'm going to grab that. Maybe this is last week's class. And then here you want to select a frame range. This is my other class. That's, let's see. So I'm just going to. So the thing is too, you don't want to, with video, so the idea with video is that video is made up of individual frames, and it's usually, the standard is 24, for animation, it's 24 frames per second. So if you have a video that is an hour long, then you're talking about 60 minutes times 60 seconds times 24, and that's a lot of frames, and that would be a lot of layers. So here you just want to kind of select a few, hit OK, hit continue, wait a second, and then you'll see how many layers you have. And I think there is a limit. So now I'm taking a video from the Zoom session for my other class, and it's here. It might not be that great too because I'm just focused on one image. Yeah, so it's not. This isn't going to be too exciting. Let's see. Let me undo this. Oh, bless you.
Oh, thank you.
Here, I'm just gonna, let's see. That's not too exciting. So let me see if I can, well, you get the idea, right? Do you guys understand the idea? I have fun with this, so I like to experiment with different videos. But let's see, let's go back. I like to do this thing too, where I like to draw and broadcast it live on to YouTube, which kind of gives me an idea if I was drawing something. So let me see if I can find something. Here are my downloads here. That's I'm just kind of searching for a video here. Let's see if I. Let me try that one. So I'll try this one. Oh, didn't like that one. Let me just try it one more time. Search. I'm just going to search for .mp.
You did it with a goldfish last time, right?
Yeah, I did the goldfish. Let me see if I can find that again. It would have a weird name. I think maybe I brought it to the desktop. Yeah, let me try this one. All right, here you go. It's the same. That's a little different. I think in this one I have, okay, there's some of me in here. see. Here, I'll just get this little clip of me. Oh, that's just one clip of me. Need more of it. Let me do it again. Here, I'll bring in this. I think it's this is a little bit more dynamic. But see, if my frames are, you'll see here in a second, what you do basically is you bring the video in as layers, and then you just, okay, so you see I have all these frames now, and what's happening is, actually, this is good. So it's kind of working. So now if I play this, it's hard to tell, but you have things changing up here, right? So it's just basically from the class. So this is pretty long. So for like Giffy though, you wouldn't want to have this much information. So I would probably go in here and I would just start to delete like a lot, you know, all of these frames by clicking on the trash can. And you can see here I have like hundreds of frames too. So let me see if I can. So it gets to be like a process, right? But you get the idea. So if you have video, let's say if I go in here now and start deleting layers, I think this affects my frame count. So I'm just deleting bunches of layers at a time. So now you can see the changes happening much faster. But that's generally how you do it. You just bring in your layers. You do file, import, video frames to layers. And then when you do it like this, it will take all those layers and then create the corresponding frames for you automatically. And that's it. So you probably could, you know, do something a little bit more interesting than this, but that's the process. And then save it as a GIF. So any questions? So that's the timeline version of doing this. Now there's another way of doing this using a CSS rule called @keyframe. So here, all the animation is basically kind of baked into one file, one GIF file. But the other way to do this is using this @keyframe rule. So I'll show you this. This gets a little bit more complicated. But what you can do with @keyframe is basically use this rule to change all sorts of different properties, different CSS properties, and you're basically doing this programmatically. You know, so you're using CSS to make the change versus baking all the changes into a GIF. So I'll show you an example of this. So here in this code, I have this keyframe or keyframes. So it has the @ symbol in front of it. So it's considered a CSS rule. There's the @media rule. There's the @font rule. So anything that has this @ symbol is considered a special type of style that's indicating it's this rule that is doing more than just creating the style. What @keyframes does, it looks for a keyword. So the keyword in this circumstance is move X. So this word can be anything you want. It could be, you know, jump or, you know, guy dancing or whatever. So this is arbitrary. And where it's looking for this is here in this animation property. So @keyframes is looking for this move X here. And then, see something here, I gotta fix, I have a mistake in here. Let me just fix some things here. I just had style up here twice. Let me see. There you go. I just had the word stuff. So keyframes is looking for this word, and this word is this keyword that it's looking for is associated with this animation property. Then here, under background image, I have a background image, and it's for this div. So it's just looking down below. I have this div here. So any div in this body for the HTML is going to have this applied to it. So I'll show you what this is doing. So I'm going to hit the little lightning bolt. And I got to drag over the window. So if you look, it's this little character and little animated character. Let me fix my windows so you can see this better. So I got my code on the left. Okay, so what's happening here is this keyframes rule is taking the background position and it's moving it from 0 pixels to -500 pixels. It's moving it to the left. The animation property here has all the information on how that's moving. So it's moving 10 increments over 1 second. So this first number is the amount of time. The next number that you have here, the next value is steps. So the amount of steps, and infinite is basically saying it's going to just keep on going forever. So if you look at this little guy, this character, it's a PNG file. And I'll cut and paste this into a new window so you can see them. He's right here. So this is the actual file. So it's basically this little guy, and it's showing you his movement. Well, this is called a Sprite Strip. This is actually something that Flash will create for you. Flash will actually export a Sprite Strip for you. But you can do it in Photoshop just as well, and one of the ways you do it is kind of using the frame animation tool to plan out your animation. So it's basically it's one image. If I copy this image and go into Photoshop, you'll see the image. So it's one image, but the image itself, if you look at the size, it's 500 pixels or points. 500 pixels here. And then if you go back to the code, you see here, that's where that number 500 comes in. So if this strip of characters was 1,000 pixels, then I would change this number to 1,000. And it would still work the same way, depending on how many individual characters, or you call them sprites, you would have in the strip. So if I had 20 characters and it was 1,000 long, I'd change my steps to 20. And it would work the same way. So the number of steps should be the number of images, and the position is the width. And you can determine that now. If I go into Photoshop, and I'm going to create a new file, I'm going to make this one a little bit smaller. So I'll make it 300 by 300. So I have this little file here, and then I can kind of plan out my animation. So if I was to do this in real time, I would use like the Cintiq and draw in each frame. What I'm going to do in this for this is I'm going to double click on the background and hit OK. It turns into a regular layer, and then I'm going to just kind of draw something. So this is a little bit more difficult to do, but it's like it's a little abstract animation here. So on layer 2, I can kind of reference this. Create a new layer, layer 3. And then what you can do is, as I work on these, I kind of do an onion skinning by lowering my opacity. So I'll lower that opacity. So it's just a little abstract, little squirrely, squiggly thing I'm making here. But this is what I'm doing here is I'm kind of making my sprite strip. So, okay, so let's say this is good. I'm going to bring all my opacities back up here. And now for this first one, actually, oops. Now I'm going to go into my timeline, create frame animation, go here to my hamburger menu, say make frames from layers, and then I'm going to play it. So it's a little abstract, squiggly thing. It could be a little character walking, it could be all sorts of stuff. Once I have something that I like, what you can do now to create your sprite strip is you basically think about the size of this. So if I go to image, canvas size, this is 300. If I have, it's 300 pixels wide, I have 5, so I probably want to make it 1500 pixels wide. And then I go to my anchor section here, and I click on this arrow to the left, and that will make the width happen from the left side. So I hit OK. I got my width, the full width that I want. Now I'm going to go to each of these layers. I'm going to click on layer 1. You know what? It kind of helps is to actually have a background for these. So having the white background would be helpful, but I'm just going to kind of guess. So layer 1 maybe comes out here. Layer 2 out here. Layer 3 out here. Layer 4. Let me kind of adjust these a little bit. Okay, so that's my Sprite Strip. What I'm going to do, last step, is I'm going to give everything a white background. So I'm going to create a new layer, drag it to the bottom, fill it with white. I'm going to select this white actually to make it match. And then the last thing I can do now is go to the very top layer, create a new layer, and then you can use this keyboard shortcut, which will take all the layers and combine them into one layer. So I can do a Shift, Control, Alt, E. If you're on a Mac, it's Shift, Control, Option, E. It's all one layer. I'll just give it a name. I'll call it Swirl. And then I'll right-click on Swirl, and I'll export it as a PNG file. And I will associate it with a folder I already have here. Let's see. So Sprite Example, I will throw it in there. So Swirl PNG. So do you guys remember how long this was? How long was this Sprite Strip? Do you guys remember? It was
pixels?
Yeah, it was 1,500 pixels, right?
Right.
So that's important. So 2 things you want to remember. How long is the Sprite Strip? 1,500 in this circumstance. And how many images, which we can call sprites, are in this? So you have 5. So I'm going to go back now to my code. So this is going to move 1,500 to left, basically, because it's going negative. I only have 5. The other thing is, though, it's going to be 300 by 300. I remember that, so 300 by 300. And then for the background image, it's going to just go into that folder. So here, URL, swirl. So there's my swirl. Hit save. Hit my lightning bolt. And there's my animation. It's kind of like a simultaneous contrast effect. So that's the other way to create animation programmatically, which is kind of cool because you can do other things with this now. You could create a playhead. You can do some like JavaScript stuff. Maybe you have random animations. You can do all sorts of things. So it's kind of like a cool little way to do your animation that's interactive. Like you could create a hover, and every time you hover over it, then it would move. That's another way to do it. And I think that was a question about the video last time. And that's the process. So there's any questions about this? It's a little, there's a lot of steps here. So basically what I did was I broke the steps down. So I have a document you can look at. So let me bring it up. I'll post this document so everybody can see it. So 1 second. So I got to clean this up a little bit, but so the @keyframes rule is when you specify styles inside the rule. Let me put this next to this. So when you specify styles inside the rule, it will gradually change from one style to another style. So the idea, though, is you have to bind. So this word bind here, you're binding the keyframe rule to a name. So here I'm binding keyframes to the name move X. So one of the ways you do it, you can do this is you start with your style. So I started with a div with a width and a height, a background image. Then we added we added the animation name to this animation property here. So move X was the name. Then we create a duration, which is this number here, 1s. Then we use the @keyframe, actually should be @keyframes, to identify the name that we created here, which was move X. And then you can do from and to. So from is basically looking at any bit of any CSS property. So here we're using background position, and here in this text example, it's affecting the transform translate. So it's affecting a different CSS property, but here background position, you start at 0, and then you go to where you want that change to happen. But this can be anything. This can be maybe you're changing a color. It can be anything in here. Doesn't necessarily have to be a distance, from one point to the next. And then you got some other options here. So you can add these timing functions. So you have ease out, you have forwards and backwards, and then you have an iteration count as well. So instead of infinity, you could add this iteration count, and it would stop after you're doing it 3 or 4 times. So those are the steps. Any questions about that? So it's a little, it can be a little complicated at first to understand all of this. And then I do have this presentation going through it as well. And so you can kind of see a couple variations of this animation. So real quick, I'm just going to go through this. So keyframes specifies animation code. Animation that is created gradually by changing one set of CSS styles to another. And you can change the set of CSS styles many times. So this idea of binding it, so you have to pick a name and apply it to the keyframes rules. So here's an example of changing color. So let me show you this example. So let me see. So in this example, instead of changing position, for the from and to, we're changing the background color. And it's being applied to example, so that's where it's being bound to. So that name appears here. So if you play this one, here it is right here. Oops. So it's basically changing from red to yellow. And here, it doesn't have it's not set to infinity, so it just plays once and it stops. So that's it. If I increase the duration, it will play once, but it'll play once over a much longer time period. So that's changing color.
Where did you see that it wasn't set to infinity? In which set of code?
Right here. So there's no. So
versus animation name or animation duration?
Actually, it's animation iteration count. So what I had before was actually the shorthand code. But if I say animation count infinity and then play this, it will just keep on going. So there it goes again. So second time, if you put a number in there instead of infinity, it would just do it that many times. So if I put 2 in there, it would just play it twice. Yeah. What I had before was shortcode 2. You'll see in this presentation. You can do, so I'll show you the shortcode code in a second. instead of from and to, you can also do percentages, which is kind of cool. So I'm just going to copy this. So here I got percentages instead of from and to. And what this will do, it will, a quarter of the way through, it'll become yellow. Then halfway through, it becomes blue. And then at the end, it becomes green. So if I go back to my code, and I replace this with these percentages, now when I play it, it's going to go through the whole spectrum of colors here. So you can use from and to, or you can use percentages, which is kind of cool. Like, you know, I can just keep on adding. I can, instead of, I can go 75%. Background green. Let's say background pink. So, you know, I just added pink to it. So you can do from or to, or you can use percentages. So from 0 to 100, you can do like, you could break it up into 1%, 2%. If you wanted to go crazy with something, you could really get really granular with the amount of percentages you use. So here are the different properties that are part of this in the breakdown. So you have your animation name. So that's the name that you choose. And here's the link too. If you want to learn more about this, I'll include this link because it goes into more detail. Here you're basically saying, it's just saying you can add as many keyframes as you want in one animation. So you can add as many percentage points here as you want. Here's now an example where not only are you changing color, but you're changing positioning at the same time, and you just separate it with a semicolon. So here's some other properties. You have animation delay. So if you add animation delay, it'll delay it by the number of seconds. And then you have these timing functions. So the animation timing function property is something that, if you're familiar with motion graphics, like After Effects, this is kind of the equivalent, where it starts fast and then it slows, or it starts slow and then it speeds up. It doesn't change the amount of time, but it changes the rate at an incremental level for each frame that you have. So you see here, you have animation name, duration, timing function, linear, which is no ease in or ease out. Delay, so it's gonna wait 2 seconds before it starts. The amount, it can be like, this could be a number or you can go on forever. Direction, you go forward, backwards, or alternate with like ping pong back and forth. And now here's the shorthand. So this was my first example that you saw. Instead of doing all of this, you can just do this. You can just say animation, put your name there, duration, timing function, the delay, how many times it happens, and then that direction. So that, Felicia, this is the equivalent of using that, all of this in shorthand.
Oh, okay.
So this is the Sprite example. So I just showed you that the first time, but so with this, basically all you're doing is you're animating the position in a background image, and that's it. And yeah, so that's another way to do animation. And then there's a third way as well, but I'm gonna hold off on that because there's another property called transition that works really well with hovers and menus and navigation. But I'm gonna wait until next week before I go into that presentation because I don't want to overload you too much information. So anyways, that's all I kind of wanted to get into today. was a little bit more animation, and then I think we have a video that I still have to post from last week, and then I'll post this video, and I'll break it up because there's really 2 parts. There's kind of 3 parts to today's lecture. We talked about Adobe Xd. We talked about creating a GIF using the frame by frame timeline, and then we talked about using the @keyframe property. And so kind of what I wanted to do today now is, now that we've gone through all of this, we'll take a break, but I kind of want to kind of check in with you guys like one-on-one and see if you want to schedule just one-on-one time with me today versus doing a critique. So I want to see where you're at with the gallery page, and then do like one-on-one sessions with you for the rest of the class. So how does that sound? Because I want to see where you guys are at individually.
That's fine.
So how do you want to do it? Like, I know Hanaya, you want a session. So who needs to have like a one-on-one Zoom session with me? Jackie, I know you're done with the project, so you may not need one with me today.
Yeah.
So Jason, what about you two?
For me, maybe not today, but definitely like, you know, in the future, like I know it.
Okay, so how are you with the gallery project?
Oh, I turned it in. Did you get it?
Okay, so I haven't even looked at that. So okay,
okay, yeah.
So how are you with your project?
I'm done with the gallery, but I wanna fix the front page.
Okay, so Hanaya, Felicia, and Wen, you guys want to do like a one-on-one type session?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Okay, so let's figure this out. Like what time? So let's kind of break it up. Let's do like, maybe I'll do one at, like let's do one at 11, and then let's break it up into like 30 minutes. So I'll do one at 11. So who wants to go at 11?
I can go at 11.
Okay, so I'll send you a link. Or yeah, I'll send you guys separate links. And then Felicia, what time do you want to do it?
11:30 is fine.
So 11:30, and then when do you want to do it at noon?
Yeah.
Okay, then let's do that. And then there's no assignment today. So basically, this project I extended it to May 9th. So yeah, so Jason and Jackie, you know, you can enjoy your day.
All right.
And then if you guys have any questions, just let me know. But yeah, there's no new assignment for this week. We'll probably start to work on our final assignment next week.
What's the final assignment going to be? Could you give us like an idea?
It's going to be some sort of story that you can tell through the web page, or you can have a personal. It could be like a personal page for yourself. So I had 2 ideas. One was to be more of a create like a multi-page site that tells a story, or if you have like a business or for your own portfolio, it can be your portfolio project. And this is the project that's going to be posted online, because we're going to use an actual host. So like you were saying, Jackie, for your personal purposes, if you want to create that portfolio site, that would be the final project.
Okay, sounds good.
So, okay. All right. So
Hey,
let's do that.
Professor, I'm trying to add you on Discord, but then I need your like your 4-digit code.
Oh, what do you need, Mike? What do you need, Jason?
Like the 4-digit code after your username. It's Cogspa, right?
Yeah. What do you for Discord?
I'm trying to. Yeah, for Discord. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were on it already.
No, that's not my actual account.
Oh, okay. So you just need the link? The link to get on? Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll send it to you in an email.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good.
And then if you look, did you get the Creative Cloud?
Oh,
Or
no, not yet. But yeah, I forgot about it.
I had the information there, so you can actually get it if you want it for, I think it's like 90 days.
Okay, yeah.
So,
yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to send Hanaya, I'll send you a Zoom link. Felicia, I'll send you a Zoom link. And then Wen, I'll send you a Zoom link. And then we'll meet one-on-one. And then Jackie and Jason, have a good rest of your weekend.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Okay, thank you. All right, guys. So what I'm going to do is basically I'm going to sign off and I'll send you these links. And then I'll talk to you in the next hour, right? So I'll end it here, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All righty. Okay. Thank you and talk to you in a bit.
Okay.